we would like grew up Editors fans, so it was kind of cool for us to be A, go on tour with them, and then B, for him to want to put out our album.
Your dream festival lineup.
We wanted something that sort of actually captured what our band was.
Kiran,
Hey,
welcome to the Man Overboard podcast, the lead singer of October Drift. How's it going? You okay?
I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, how are you guys doing?
Very good,
Not
thank
too
you.
shabby.
You've got a new album coming out, Blame the Youth, in September. Are you excited for that? How's the release cycle going so far?
Good. Yeah, Blame the Young. It's out. Yeah, you're right. 27th of September. Um, we've released two singles from it. Blame the Young and Demons, and then we've got Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is out next week. I think a week tomorrow. And then yeah, then the album in September. But yeah, I mean the response from the singles and stuff has been super positive. We've got the tour around the sort of album release towards the end of the year, UK and European tour, and we've got some in stores as well. Like we're going to do them sort of intimate, stripped back, acousticy sort of in stores as well around the album. But yeah, I think we're all feeling really good about the album release. Yeah.
Nice, exciting times. I was listening to the title track itself earlier today, and it's got very deep meaning around kind of denial and passing the blame on, or at least that's what I took from it. Is there a deeper story behind that track when you came to write it?
It's actually like some old, but the verses themselves were we'd had those lyrics knocking around for quite a long time, um, and we'd never pieced them. We'd never sort of been able to piece them together into a song, and it was that the best friends you had, oh denial, which sort of was we were able to piece it together, um, which kind of made pulled it all together and made it make sense in terms of like you said, the, how you view yourself and passing the blame on to others and never being responsible for your own sort of actions and things like that. And that was where it all kind of came from.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the track, although it slightly made me question some of my own actions, which I suppose is a good thing for music to do.
Yeah, well, maybe, yeah. I don't
So
want to make it feel bad about yourself.
Oh, no, no, no,
no, no,
no.
no, not at all, not at all. You were touching on some more intimate shows that you were going to be doing there, and you'd also announced an exclusive indie record store vinyl. And the design of this looks absolutely fantastic, by the way. I really like it. Did you have much of a hand in designing it at all?
uh, Alex, who's our bass player, we call him Biz. He has designed everything to do with this campaign, like all the posters, all the artworks, the vinyl sleeves, and everything like that. So he has gone like, stepped up and gone above and beyond there. And I was kind of thinking, there's so many parts to being in a band, like now more than ever, where you're like not just poor musicians. Do you know what I mean? Doing things like making the music videos, recording the albums, and doing the artworks and things like that, where you have to have so many different sort of strengths.
So speaking of the artwork and kind of pictures that are using to promote this album, there's a lot of pictures of, I think it's you hanging upside down.
Yeah,
And there seems to be a lot of, I don't know, emphasis on those pictures set. And I just wondered if you had like a story behind that and how those pictures came about.
we did want to kind of like the previous artworks that we've done, we've liked, but we wanted something that sort of actually captured what our band was, and I think like first and foremost we're a live band. That's how we've sort of built our like fan base and what we've always done. um so we wanted the artwork to sort of just be, and in the same way that Blame the Young I think is quite striking and quite sort of like memorable, but I don't know if that's the right word, but we wanted the artwork to just be like, here's what we are, here's what we do, live band, this is the sort of energy you can expect from a live gig, and sort of drill that home in a way. Do you know what I mean?
Nah, I
Make it
love
as
that. I want to know how you ended up hanging upside down from a
Yeah,
balcony. Like,
yeah.
what was the thought process in that one? I love it. I love the energy. But how did you end up there?
the actual thought process was that pictures from Thekla in Bristol,
Okay.
and we'd done that once before, and I'd already hung off the balcony once, so it's like, right, I can't do that again. So I'm gonna have to do something a bit different, because I normally try and do like climb something, or if I can, if there's anything, or go out in the audience, and so I was just thinking of how I could one up myself again.
Yeah, because I saw you did your first headline show in France, and it absolutely popped off there. And I thought that picture set might have been from that gig because that seemed particularly explosive. Like just
Yeah,
the energy there seemed amazing.
yeah. Supersonic has that balcony as well in Paris. Yeah, and that was, we did not know what to expect for like a first headline show like outside of the UK, and that was yeah, it was mega great gig. So I'm looking forward to the tour. Like we've got the European tour, which is the first sort of headline European tour. So we again, a lot of that is like our first feet in the toes in the water for a lot of those places. So we didn't know what to expect, but um, I think the Netherlands and Germany, especially like the ticket sales are looking really positive. So yeah, it's exciting.
No, the band definitely bring a lot of energy to the live shows. And I wanted to ask, you said that a lot of this is kind of your first dip in the water. And I know your previous record kind of touched a lot on COVID and the effects of that. How did that feel at the time when you'd built up so much traction and then a lockdown came just after releasing an album? And then you've kind of built up that traction again now. But what were your feelings in that moment during COVID?
Yeah, so we released the first album in January 2020, and then we toured it in the February, and then we went into the lockdown in the March. So it was like really put the brakes on everything, you know. Um, but it was a good opportunity for us to write the second album. Um, so that was like a lot of that second album was written just like on an acoustic guitar at home, and then like fleshed out when we could get together again, and then recorded ourselves. I mean, it wasn't all bad at all. Like I was like lucky in that I wasn't, you know, it wasn't a desperate period of my life. Do you know what I mean? It was weird, the same as everyone else with the just weird disconnect and like the unknown and like some fear and stuff, and even things with like your neighbors, your housemates, and things like that. So much space for like weird, you know, things that just. So I think because everyone's so out of their comfort zone, and I mean, there's a song on there called Webcam Funerals. There was like, I don't know if you guys have heard that. So that was like a direct thing of watching a webcam funeral. You know, it wasn't a COVID death, but it was a death where me and a bunch of our friends and stuff couldn't be there at the funeral, so we were all just sat at home watching it on laptops. So that was that song more than any of the others was a direct like a direct song exactly about what that was about at that time, and that sort of happened, and I was like, right, I've got to write this song because I didn't really know what else to do, and I wasn't sure if it would ever be put out because I didn't know if it was how people might feel about me putting it out, if it was disrespectful, or I didn't know. I just had to write it at that point, and then when we came to do it, I checked with anyone who might be, you know, concerned, but everyone was sort of thought it was a really important song to put out at that time. And then when it came to when the album actually came out, it was after the lockdown and stuff like that. So it was like, is this even still relevant anymore? Do people even want to hear and like a lockdown down song? Do you know what I mean? Everyone wanted to, in a way, just to forget about that whole period. Um, and then the whole scandal with the sort of the like the Conservative government and Partygate and all of that came up just at about that time that we were releasing the song. And I was like, I think it is still relevant, you know, because we were even talking about changing the lyrics to like make them about something else. But it was like it was definitely still relevant when it did come out in that sort of Partygate and post COVID era, you know.
Yeah, it was Webcam Funerals was one that I had noted down to touch on there because that kind of hits home because I think I don't know if you ever did this, but I had one or two funerals that were attended via webcam during COVID. And did you know at the time that what you were writing would, like you were saying with the release there, it kind of feels like a time capsule of what happened during COVID. And looking back now, perhaps now there's been a bit of distance on it. I think people will see it with different eyes rather than seeing it as kind of more depressing. It's kind of showing what happened in that time
Yeah, I
period.
think definite time period, the time capsule, 100%. Is like, although there was a whole like you know thousands of artists writing music at that time, and it was a good opportunity to write and stuff like that. It's still just such a small stamp where music was actually like albums were recorded in that or written in that frame. I think looking back on it in years to come, it will be quite a, you know, it's a strange time for music to be written out of and to be recorded in. And even like that was the most obvious one, but insects and airborne panic attack and these things like have a lot of that COVID and stuff sort of under the surface in those songs for sure.
Yeah, I think it's quite an important time period to have wrote about. And I know like after the lockdowns, my anxiety was really bad. And there was a lot of albums I listened to. And I really remember watching on Netflix, Bo Burnham did a show called Inside. And that kind of really hit home for me, where it was like it's kind of over now, but you still feel like you have to be inside all the time. So I definitely think that the album is a time capsule. And as you say, it's important to have put it out, and I think it'll remain relevant forever in a strange way.
Yeah, I hope so. Like, and then having done this recording this third album was a totally lighter experience in the recording process. Like, after that, it felt like the doors had been opened or whatever, and we could tour again, and we could go out somewhere else and record ourselves. And yeah, it did feel a lot lighter in that respect.
Was collaboration within the band a lot easier with this newest album? Like, did it feel different to having to write an album where, you know, perhaps you couldn't see the other band members in person, you couldn't jam together and kind of come up with ideas? Did that make the process easier for this newest album?
Yeah, I think I was writing for a while for the second album was quite good because I had all this time and stuff. So I'd set aside like an hour or two a day and write, and that was brilliant. And then after I don't know, a month or two, you've kind of run out of steam and just like you've got no life experience that sort of gives you any influence other than I kind of used it all up, I think. And then could get definitely like being able to gig and tour and play gigs and meet up with the guys again and sort of do things in different environments and stuff like that sort of made the writing collaboration definitely and made the writing a lot easier afterwards.
How would you say over time your production has changed? Because I believe that when you first started, most of the first album was just kind of recorded by yourselves and then still sounded incredible. How has that changed now, or do you still do practically everything yourselves?
So the first I think the first EPs and stuff we recorded ourselves. The first album we toured with editors in 2018, and Justin Lockie who plays guitar and editors, he wanted to record our first album, so we were like lucky enough to go and record with him. And we would like grew up editors fans, so it was kind of cool for us to be go on tour with him and then B for him to want to put out our album. And that was a really like a big learning curve for us, how to record and make an album as well. So then we recorded the second album out of the circumstance with the COVID and everything. But again, that was a big learning curve. We were still like, I think we did a good job, but like it was our first album of actually recording it ourselves and stuff as well. So I think we were a bit more comfortable in what we were doing. And it's Dan and Alex who are sort of doing most of the recording, but I think they had got a lot better at it as well when we came to do this one. Funnily enough, this album was recorded in an Airbnb, like not a studio, whereas the other two were in studios. And I think it sounds the best. So
yeah, I think it's about the actual quality of the music in terms of lyricism and just the music itself, as opposed to the recording being super crispy clean and the best producer in the world doing it a lot of the time.
Yeah, like we never wanted it to sound super clean and everything. Like anyway, do you know what I mean? We've always kind of wanted it to sound like a band in a room. That's what we've kind of had been going for.
So you formed in 2014, and then you released your first single was in 2015, and then it took you quite a while to eventually like release a full album because, like you're saying there, that was in January of 2020.
Yeah.
What was with the long time period between forming and deciding to drop your first album? Were you just waiting for the music to come together?
I think we probably had the music. We just wanted it to. We'd played in bands previously, like we'd been in since the four of us, since we were like 17 or something. And we wanted to make sure we did it right when we came to do the debut album, and we didn't want to throw it away, those songs that we sort of really believed in. So it wasn't until we did actually track an album that we were going to self-release at some point before agreeing to do the album with Justin. And like looking back, I'm so glad we didn't self-release that album that we had tracked back then. So I think we were just waiting for the right time and the right opportunity to do it what we thought, give it the chance we thought it deserved.
And talking about those kind of earlier days of the band, I was watching an old interview earlier today, and I learned that you didn't have any social media for the first, little while that you were a band. What was the reason behind that?
Yeah, we didn't for about, I can't remember if it's about 6 months or a year or something. We just so definitely that first tour and the first single and stuff, we didn't have any social media. Our thinking was that it was more of a statement than having social media at that point, launching a band. And like I said, we'd played in previous bands and we had enough people we could like message behind the scenes and people who'd be interested to come to the gigs and stuff like that, that we did it that way as a sort of, I guess, as a tool to sort of build some interest and some hype and see if it could be done without sort of shouting about it on social media, and become a talking point as well, which I think it was. But then it hit its limit of, it's almost a necessary evil. Without, if you've not got money or a budget or something, it came to the point where we were like, right, we're gonna have to do social media. We went from having no social media to now doing like these reels and TikToks and things like that. And it's, sometimes you're like, oh man, we spend a good chunk of the time we're together, like thinking, oh, we'll do this, or filming little TikToks and stuff like that, which like we never started the band to do that kind of thing, but actually it's proven to reach like loads of new people and people who come to gigs, people who buy records and stuff like that. So it's an interesting full circle there.
Yeah, you kind of answered what I was about to ask, because we've spoken to a lot of bands who maybe specifically have been signed to different labels, etc., and have kind of been forced into the world of social media where they've got to post certain things and do certain stuff in the lead up to a new album. And I wondered how you felt about how music is released today in general, because I feel like it's changed quite a lot over the last decade with now everything's around streaming. I think vinyl's made a little bit of a resurgence, but kind of what's your thoughts on that as a whole?
I think it's like you can't change the course of the way it has gone. So I think just like kicking and shouting and being sad about it's not going to really achieve anything. But I think the main thing that the main shift is if you don't see the music, like you're right, like you can make money from streams and you can make money from vinyls. You have to be pretty big to actually make a living from that, selling music as this. But the gig, if you you can use the music as the so that's no longer the product in a way. Do you know what I mean? The live gig is the product, and that's like your marketing tool almost. And you can see the streaming services almost as a social media. You can get out to loads of people that way, and if they come to your show and buy merch or whatever and build a fan base that way, then you can make a living. But it is definitely harder than ever, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think people are less likely to pick up physical merch and albums and stuff as well now. So I always find it quite a hard balance. Me and Tim have spoke about it a few times, but I know that I've kind of made a conscious decision in the last couple of years, because I'm quite a big music fan, to start picking up vinyls and to start actually listening to full albums instead of just one or two tracks from an album, because I was caught in that cycle of Spotify, listen to 3 songs from an artist and then decide whether I love them or hate them. And it's quite hard to kind of break that cycle, but that's not what music and albums are made of.
Yeah, and there is so much music out there. It's a constant new supply of music on Spotify and stuff, which is great. Like it's a double-edged sword, really. Like it's so good for music fans, and and even as an artist as well, you can get out to so many new people. But then you're also trying to like be seen amongst the sea of artists and new music and stuff, like never ending. I don't know, it's tricky, and for that actually to turn into people coming to your gigs or coming, like you said, buying albums and t-shirts and whatever, is a big step. And it does definitely happen, but you guys know it's like a hard thing to turn into actual like real fans.
Yeah, so speaking of being a fan of music yourself and other artists, I wanted to ask you a question that we ask every guest that we have coming on this podcast, and that is for your dream festival lineup. So we're after a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday night headliner. You can throw in a couple of smaller acts on each day if you wanted to. But yeah, just whichever artist you think would fit that bill nicely for you.
To add on there, the artist can be passed away, so it can be someone that is no longer active or even alive, which is a little bit dark when I say it in that way. But
yeah, what a way to phrase
I
it.
phrase
Yeah.
that very
I
strangely.
think that definitely adds an element, though. Yeah, I heard you mention that earlier. I was listening to the Swim Deep interview that you guys did,
Oh,
which
nice.
was
Thank you.
really
Appreciate
cool. I need to check that out as well because big Bill Ryder Jones fan as well. And he produced it, didn't he? Yeah, their
He did,
latest
yeah.
album. And I heard you say, we asked this on every interview. And I was like, "All right, I'm glad I listened." And that's such a tricky question there. I think my instant thought was the Beatles, but then I was like, "That's such an Alan Partridge answer," you know. But then I thought maybe Nirvana, David Bowie, yeah, the Beatles, Frightened Rabbit. Maybe I wish I could have got to see Frightened Rabbit. Big fan. Yeah, I was at Glastonbury a few weeks ago, and the headliners there got a lot of stick. I think I saw Coldplay, and I was a bit like Coldplay, but when I was actually there, I was like, you know what, this is fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I think I've kind of come around to Coldplay. When I was younger, I was an active hater, and now I'm like, oh no, I look at the gigs. I'd like to go to a live show, and the first two albums are actually mega.
Yeah, that's it. It's just for the first few albums, but yeah, they're definitely good headline material anyway. You know, the other things that other people I jotted down was Leonard Cohen and Neil Young, which I love those singer-songwriters like those guys as well. But yeah, I'll probably stick with the Beatles and Nirvana and David Bowie maybe.
Yeah, that's very different acts as well. I feel like you'd have all different vibes throughout the festival. I wanted to come back to a October Drift track, one that I really liked, Waltzer. And there was some specific lyrics in there that I kind of wanted to go over because I don't even know if there's going to be a particular story behind these, but I thought I really liked them and it felt really personal. So from the track, it's but I hold on only for you, but I don't think I'm coming back. Cancer crawl, what can I do? I don't think I'm coming back. Poor and I'm sick and I'm falling behind, limping barefoot through the shards of a shattered mind. And to me, I took away like a real track about mental health in that. Firstly, is that what it's about? And secondly, if so, what was it like kind of putting that type of emotion out into the world?
It was definitely like a mental health track, and I think the response we got from that as well. It's always strange when you're putting out like raw emotion and stuff, a bit like heart on your sleeve and stuff like that, and how it can be I think we weren't even sure whether we should do it as a single or how strong the track was, or I think we knew it was a good track, but we weren't sure if it was the response from that album. I think that was probably the song that got the best response out of the whole album on the second album there. And yeah, it is a sort of about mental health. It's also got this. Have you ever seen The Lighthouse, the film? It's
yeah, the one with Willem Dafoe and
yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's mad.
Yeah, crazy.
But that was like this kind of imagery that was that like spiraling madness and like things falling apart, and that sort of that was the kind of reference for a lot of that song as well. So yeah, you are right. It's definitely about mental health and sort of the pits of depression and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange, but I really like that song. It's strange to say that when someone says, "Yeah, it's about depression," and then you're like, "No, I actually really love that song." But
but that's
I think
like music can give you, like people can connect with that and feel less alone when they do hear other people singing about these things as well, and I hold on only for you and things like that. There is still bits of hope in that as well, I think.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And
we thought it was too cheesy doing the call and response, like the "I hold on only for you" and then Chris coming with it. But I don't think I'm coming back. But we were like, in hindsight, I don't think it's cheesy at all. But like, just when you doubt yourselves at the time, and
that's the kind of stuff that kind of like ignites a call and response with the audience, though,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
you'll
yeah,
be singing that one and then they might be singing it back at your
yeah.
show. So that kind of stuff, it might feel, I can see why you'd think it feels cheesy in the studio when you're writing it. But then if you think of it on a grander scale, that's the kind of stuff that actually works really well and resonates with fans.
Yeah, you're totally right. We didn't like that chant back from the crowd started happening whenever it, well, not straight away, but like a year after it had been out, or 6 months after, whatever it started, and now it's definitely a thing where the crowd sort of sing it back to us, and we weren't thinking of that at the time when we were writing it at all, but it was definitely something that's caught on for the live side of it. Yeah.
And speaking of crowds, is there any times, obviously, you generally have a pretty mental live show. So I wondered if you've got any crazy tour stories, either from yourself or from maybe a fan interaction or something.
Sure,
This
we've
is
got
always
that.
an on the spotter because people go, there is some stories, but we
But can I
probably
tell
can't
this?
tell you what they are.
There's so many of the stories are like silly in jokes and like little things that like you think of really funny but actually aren't. um I mean, we've had some, even on the last tour when we were with Ist in Europe, like just some of the places we stayed in Scandinavia, we just stayed in these tiny little like um loggers huts and stuff like that. So there was like the band, James, our sound engineer, and just funny scenarios where you find yourselves in. um we did we stayed in this like haunted hotel in Poland somewhere, and went out for we went out to get some food, and it was like crazy cheap for drink, and ended up at this
Mm.
like barn dance
Oh man.
club. We were in the middle of nowhere, and it was totally surreal. And yeah, I don't think we remember getting back. Biz was covered in he'd gone through the like some marshes on search for some Rizzlers. Um
I love that. In the middle of
and
Poland as well.
yeah.
I bet, was it freezing at the time?
Yeah. And then we went the next day. We found the biggest statue of Jesus. I think it's in the world. I think they said it was bigger than the Rio one. And
Wow.
we all just had major panic attacks at this massive Jesus with really bad
Literally
hangovers.
looking down on you.
Yeah.
I went to Italy a few weeks ago and I was staying at Lake Como, and the hotel that I was in was really old. Do you know, when you're looking around, you're thinking it looks quite rustic, it looks quite cool. And then we decided to Google it and discovered that it was used by the Nazis as a hotel in World War
Oh
II,
man.
and then a hospital. And I was like, Jesus Christ. And
Feel
then
it.
literally a couple of hours later, it started like thunderstorming, and it was fully sunny earlier in the day. And we were laid in this room with a massively high ceiling and could just hear the rain scattering down on the roof. I think that's the scariest hotel experience I've had. I'm not
There's a,
sure it'd be as scary as the Poland one though.
there's a few venues which have got that sort of like Nazi history and stuff in Germany that we've played, which has been there's one which is like like an old hangar, like it's crazy huge building with a great music venue in it, and the bottom is now like I think it's like a music uni or an arts uni or something like that, and it's got like it's really a cool place now, but it's kind of like steeped in this mad history. Same with another one that we played, which was at once filled to the brim with like furniture and stuff from Jewish people who'd been like evacuated and
Jesus.
things. And it's like
Yeah.
I think the venue owner was like telling us, and it's a massive tall building like that, and it's like yeah, some of these places are crazy histories. So it is.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is sad to see, but at least they're being used for something positive now.
mhm. I mean, that's
100.
one of the things about touring, like definitely meeting people, hearing the stories, like local places, and meeting people, and just the sort of even in the UK, like would never have seen all these corners of the UK that we've
Mm.
visited. Yeah.
And I know in the UK you supported Pearl Jam along with the Pixies at Hyde Park. How did that come together, and what was that experience like?
Oh man, it was amazing. Yeah. That was British summertime. Yeah, we were literally slotted between the Pixies and Pearl Jam, which was nuts. Like we were on the second stage, so it was like the crowd sort of turned their heads and we were on over there.
Oh, that is
But it
wild.
was brilliant. It was brilliant. It was an absolutely like beautiful sunny day. Got to see Pearl Jam. Um, Eddie Vedder can't climb anymore. I think they are still brilliant, but I thought I'd step up and try and do a bit of climbing. So I climbed up a tree, and didn't think I was quite going to make it, but I got a boost. But
Nice.
yeah, I thought I'd try and fill his shoes in the best way I could. But yeah, it was great, great gig, great day just to be at anyway.
Yeah, speaking of venues and gigs, there's another question that we like to bring up from time to time, which would be for your dream venue. So, is there anywhere in the world in particular that you as a band would like to play? Do you know of any certain venues? We had somebody saying that they wanted to play the stage that was at the pyramids, which we didn't know existed at the time, but there you go.
What, in Egypt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
They've got a stage there, which is
Wow.
crazy.
I mean, this is not as Glastonbury is like we did Glastonbury in 2017 on the Jump Hill, but I would love to do the Pyramid definitely.
Yeah.
But I mean, like we grew up like near Glastonbury as well, so that sort of always has like hung over our musical. What we see is there's not much going on from where we're from, but there is Glastonbury, which is obviously like one of the biggest festivals in the world. So that's always sort of hung heavy over our ambitions and stuff like that. But other than that, as a dream stage, I'd also love to go to the States. I'd love to tour the States. That'd be a dream for me. I've never been, but in my head, like touring the States is a sort of.
Mm.
I'm not that bothered about going anyway, but I'd love to tour it, like just to go and play the venues and do it that way. I think I would be unreal. Yeah.
I think doing a road trip across America is on a
Uh-huh.
lot of people's bucket list. So to be able to do that with your music would be amazing. And
Yeah.
speaking of touring, you've got your upcoming UK and EU tour. And I noticed on the tour poster, you've got a very, very busy run up to Christmas. I think December, you've got 2 nights off, I think total or something. How do you even prepare for that kind of dedication?
I mean, we were a bit like, is it too much into the Christmas celebrations there? We're pushing it right up to the nose there. I don't know. We love touring. Like we're absolutely buzzing for it. We've not done any festivals over this summer. So we toured in like March and April, and I think we did the one gig in May, which was the Paris one. But it feels like a long time off for us for a band that's like used to touring a lot. So we're buzzing to be out doing it and playing all these new songs and stuff as well, and doing headline shows in a bunch of new places across Europe. I'm sure some of them in Scandinavia and stuff is going to be cold in December.
Yeah, just a
um,
bit.
yeah, going quite far east as well to like Poland and to Budapest and stuff like that, Prague and things, which will be really fun as well. So yeah, just really excited for it.
Well, if anybody doesn't already have tickets for the tour, make sure you pick them up. But Kiran, thank you so much for your time. And
Thanks
I'm
for having
sure
me.
we'll catch you at the Leeds day of the tour.
Definitely, yeah. Drop us a message and it'd be lovely to see you guys there.
Yeah, lovely stuff. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, guys.